What's up guys, Dave Nader 1, 2, and 2, and today is something a little bit different. We're doing a game review. Konami recently came out with a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Mobile game called Duel Links. It's a lot of fun, and I figured it's actually kind of a relevant topic because it's new, and I figured some people might actually be curious if they're thinking about playing it, what my opinions are. Or they don't give a rat's ass what I have to say. Either one. The story of Duel Links is pretty basic. Kaiba apparently creates a digital world that we all beam ourselves into, and you can walk around and duel each other. It's pretty much just an excuse to have fancy holographic graphicness. And as a Yu-Gi-Oh game, the main focus though is dueling. In this game though, the rules for a duel have been modified slightly in an attempt to make it more mobile friendly and kind of speed up the game, especially because this card pool is pretty much like the first 3 sets of the game ever, plus a few other cards sprinkled here and there, so what would be normally a very slow format is sped up because of how the game is constructed. Instead of a 40 card deck, your deck is 20 cards, which is actually kind of a neat little thing, as well as only having a max of 3 monsters and 3 spells and traps as opposed to 5 and 5. Other than a lack of a main phase 2, the game pretty much progresses just how a normal duel would. When the game starts, you get to pick one of 2 characters, Kaiba or Yugi, and the game pretty much progresses the same way for both, but it does actually kind of change some of the dialogue and what you have with other characters, because there is character-specific dialogue between you and your opponents. It also affects the very first deck that you end up starting with, whether it's Dark Magician or Blue Eyes White Dragon. I picked Yugi. As the game progresses though, you can unlock other playable characters as well as the one you didn't pick at the beginning, so you can kind of get a full taste of everything. The main story of the game, story I use loosely, progresses through what they call stages. Each stage has various missions or essentially a little tiny fetch quest like beat 6 duels or tribute summon a monster or play against Taya Gardner. Once you get all the little checkboxes on your list and all the little rewards for such, you progress to the next stage. As well as your game leveling up through stages, your character also levels up through its character level. Each character that you have unlocked has its own level and its own set of decks. The cards in each deck are shared, so if you only have 1 copy of Mirror Force, everyone can have it. In order to get new cards, you have the Card Trader, which is unlocked I think at stage 7, which I just recently got, as well as the Card Shop, which is basically exactly that, it's a card shop. Currently, there's only 3 sets. I don't remember what they're called, but there's Daedalus set, the Meteor Black Dragon set, and the Blue Eyes Ultimate set. They all have very Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG sounding set names, and there's actually boxes to these. Basically, the game gives you a card list for the set and what's actually in the booster box. So it's like you bought a 24 card pack off of eBay or something, but knew the contents of it already, and you basically just check off those numbers when you pull new packs. It's kind of neat because you kind of see what you can eventually get, and if you need more copies of a card that only appeared once or twice in the box, you can reset the box, so it decreases your chances of getting certain cards, but resets the box so you could get at other cards. It's an interesting mechanic to put into the game, essentially some sort of pseudo pack opening simulator, so that's kind of neat, I guess. The packs only consist of 3 cards, normally one of them a holo, but sometimes you get 2, it's kind of neat, and the cards that are holo are alright. They don't seem to have much bearing on the power of the card, it's just something neat to collect. Speaking of collecting, you have pretty much 3 things in this game that you get through duels or the random pickups over the board. You have gems, gold, and keys. The gems are used to buy packs, the gold is to use at the card trader, which is essentially exactly what it sounds like. You just trade cards in for gold or pick up gold and then use that gold to buy cards. I'm not sure why they don't just use the gems too. And the keys, which are used at the gate, which is how you play specific main characters from the story. The map is littered with random duels in which you can play against mostly first name only NPCs like Maggie and Josh and Mikey, who tend to play pretty poor decks, but every once in a while you will find a main character of the series running around outside of the gate, which you don't actually have to use the keys for. Last but not least, you have the Deck Studio, which is where you take the cards that you've gotten out of packs or won in duels and put them into your deck or modify your deck. An interesting thing added to this game is your character's deck ability. Basically, your character has an inherent ability which activates at the beginning of the duel. For instance, Yami has Yami, or the field spell Yami is always active. And Joey has a life point gained at the beginning of the game. And you can presumably unlock other powers down the line. Some positive things about this game I really like are the graphics, first and foremost. They hit you in the face, they're flashy, and the signature card of each character's deck has a fun little 3D animation when it's summoned. Every time you play a monster of the field, there's a tiny PNG of the monster with full art that appears above the card so that it kind of gives you that pseudo hologram duel thing they did in the show. It's actually pretty impressive that every card has a full art version of it, because every card essentially crops its image, which probably explains why the card catalog isn't super big, because the artists for this game probably have to redraw every card art in order to accomplish that little floaty card art thing. There's decent tactile response and kind of a Shonen Jump comic book style art to the whole thing, which gives it a very Yu-Gi-Oh feel. The character select screen is kind of a cool idea because a lot of these old Game Boy Advance games and things that this seems to hark back to, you pretty much either played as a nameless character or you played as Yugi, which, okay, that's fine, but playing as Joey or Kaiba or some other character like Taya or Mai is a very interesting mechanic, and it kind of gives you something to switch it up with. And because you have all these big name characters from the classic Yu-Gi-Oh, you get their voice actors along with it. As you're dueling, your character will say things like,
"You win, Joey,"
which is a lot of fun because the original voice actors came back to this game to reprise the roles for their respective characters, which is just crazy and gives you kind of a sense of immersion to the whole world. Furthermore, characters that should know each other, like, I don't know, Mai and Joey, actually do have character-specific banter back and forth, which is actually, again, really cool. So your characters aren't just saying a bunch of generic crap over and over again and it gets really tedious. Along in the same veins as the voice acting, the soundtrack itself is fantastic. It's essentially like a electronic 80s metal guitar solo just the whole time. I love it. Playing half duels with a smaller field and a half deck is extremely mobile friendly, which is cool because otherwise games like Generation Duel get kinda slow and they're hard to do in short spurts because duels just take too long. Duels are much faster here, so blowing 5 or 6 minutes on one duel isn't a big commitment, and you can get actually some pretty decent progress through the game. And the changes they made to the game to make it mobile friendly are inherently interesting from a real-life Yu-Gi-Oh player perspective, like for instance the deck abilities, which I think it might be kind of cool to have in the actual TCG card game. I don't know how you would implement it, but it's an interesting idea. It could probably balance a lot of older decks. But with any game, there is some things I don't like. There is a low card count. It's pretty much the first 3 sets of this game up to the very start of Rituals, and even then, even though they've peppered in a couple newer cards like Colossalus and things like that, newer, there still isn't a ton of cards. And the cards available to you at the very beginning of the game are relegated pretty much to like level 3 and lower vanilla monsters, and they're all bad, and half of them we don't even have in the TCG because they were like from the very first set of the game, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Pack 1 and the OCG that we just never got prints of. Although they are very nostalgic monsters, so that's I guess a thing. And because the card pool is bad, the AI is just as bad. Half the time you'll find your opponents, especially the no-name NPCs, just summoning things in attack mode regardless of what's on the field, which doesn't make sense. If I have a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you don't put Drek in attack mode. They don't even set. It's really weird. On the higher level opponents, they actually start using things like spell cards, but for the first couple of levels and stages, it's really kind of boring. You gotta kind of grind through it. When you get to a higher stage, you unlock the auto duel feature, which basically lets the computer run your deck as well, which is kind of neat to grind through really low level opponents, but it still makes awful plays, can ruin an entire duel. Like one time I saw it, I was playing Joey's deck and it played costs down, and it discarded a card, and I didn't even have red eyes in my hand, so it just played costs down because it could, and it was a terrible waste of hand advantage. But against a really bad opponent is a great way to eke out a win, especially if you're trying to get those mission check marks. We gotta get 1 out of the 6 duels and you just want to get it over with. I'm not sure I like the fact that there is an auto duel feature though, because it implies that they need an auto duel feature. And of course, like any mobile game that's free to download, there is pay to play better. Essentially, you can pay real money to get cards and packs and things like that, which I guess is okay if you want to do it, but that means if you want to play it for free, you gotta really grind. Last but not least, the thing that actually hits me the most, which may not be a problem for a lot of people, is the fact that it always needs to be connected to data, whether it's Wi-Fi or your cell service. This seems to be a very common thing for modern mobile games. I don't know if it's because they do a lot of the computing and AI things on a cloud somewhere, but it's really annoying when you live in New York City and you're on the subway, because you spend half of your commute underground where you can't get cell service. So unless you start a duel at a station and then end a duel at a station, you'll just get a bunch of weird server errors and lose all your progress, which is really annoying. Well, not all your progress with that current duel. It'd be cool if it was like Generation Duel where you had local gameplay and you just update it to your server when you finally have a connection, but, you know, I guess I'm nitpicking here. And all the voice acting isn't great. There's some less than great. Overall, I'd give the game, I don't know, a 7. When rating games, I hate how a lot of gaming magazines and journalists don't give anything unless it's really bad below a 7, which is kind of annoying because that pretty much makes ranks 1 through 6 useless. Looking at a scale, assuming a 5 is a completely playable average game that you'll play once or twice and then put down, that makes a 7 pretty good. The voice acting and visuals are pretty much fantastic and give you a very good sense of the anime, and sometimes you'll sit there and you'll feel like you're actually Joey or Yugi and you're like, Inferno Fire Blast! And it's a lot of fun. There's certainly a novelty to some of the older cards, although a bigger card pool might be appreciated. Plus, it's a little grindy, especially against the lower level opponents. And like I said earlier, it'd be cool if I had some local offline play so that I didn't have to worry about it while I'm on the subway. Overall, a really fun mobile game, and frankly, I think anyone who's a fan of the game should check it out. It's a neat little diversion. Anyway, guys, that was just something different I wanted to do, talk about this game. I have been playing a lot of it recently. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this, and maybe you guys want me to do more of this kind of crap. It's something different, and it's not exactly hard to do, so let me know in the comments below, and, you know, I'm curious. And remember, guys, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I'll see you guys next time.